Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, that is Tim. We talk about horror movies on this show, and this episode is going to be about High Tension, also known as Switchblade Romance, depending on your location, and it is a French horror film from 2003. It had quite a reputation at the time. I remember it being like a big deal when it came out. But we're going to talk about this. We'll start spoiler free. We'll give you warning before we get into spoilers. Also worth mentioning, this is the Patreon vote winner for the month. Our patrons voted this because our patrons at the $5 tier once a month get to vote between 4 films, and I believe this was a crypt selection of picks as well. The 4 films were all taken from the crypt, which is also a Patreon submitted user list of like movies that they want us to do at some point, and then every so often we'll put them in a vote, or we'll just pick one of them and do them. Regardless, here we are. This is High Tension.
Yeah, also fit in nicely for to watch just a few days after 420.
You tied it in somehow, Tim. That is good work. Good work. Also, we didn't have an episode last week. We actually skipped 1 week. Just one. Like we said we'd have a rough patch for a while, and we've only skipped 1 week. That's quite good. We're proud of that. Yeah. So we'll give you a proper show today because we're back after a week off. So it's off to a good start. Tim.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. How are you, Tim? How was your week off? Did you do anything nice? Did you see the sights? Did you?
I mean, didn't do much. Mostly, it was mostly work. Yeah, that's about it. I've been doing some traveling. 2 weeks ago, we went to Hawaii for a wedding, and then last week we went up north a little bit to the kind of, I guess you don't live here, so you wouldn't really know, but the San Luis Obispo area, because that's where our wedding's going to be. So we're scouting out some wedding stuff. So I had some travel stuff, but other than that, just a lot of work, still grinding out. Doing a lot of overtime. Not much fun stuff. Nothing that interesting really happened.
So you spent a good minute just listing it in detail, all the non-fun stuff that you did. I want to give them a show, Tim. Sorry. This is now the section which they have to get through to get to the hopefully good stuff. I mean, I don't know how confident I'm being after that. But
I mean, pretty much all I do, especially lately when I'm not working, is just reading. I haven't really been watching much lately. It's mostly just been, if I'm not working, I'm usually reading, either catching up on comics or reading a Stephen King book. I just finished The Long Walk, which was pretty good.
I think I just usually expect you to make up stuff for silly sake. So when you actually just listed the actual mundane reality of everything that's happened in the last week or so, I was disappointed, I'm not gonna lie.
Sorry, my life has gotten very boring.
I feel like when I don't want you to be silly, you give me some silly, stupid answer, but when I actually set you up and say, here, entertain them with silliness.
So I need to be nicely rested and fed well in order to be my normal silly self. When I'm tired and overworked, then you just get unfortunately the real version of me, which is not very interesting. But hey, that's what the fans want, I guess. No.
Well, please be excited for the rest of this episode. So, High Tension. What is High Tension? High Tension is a film about 2 friends, Marie and Alex. Alex is taking Marie back to her family's home that's out on a farm somewhere, because they're going to be working there over the summer or the year or whatever it is. But the first night there, this serial killer shows up and starts killing the family, and it becomes a sort of a Marie kind of running to try, because the killer doesn't know she's there because she's not in any of the family photos and stuff. He kind of isn't aware there's an extra person there, and she's trying to save Alex, who's been kind of kidnapped for nefarious purposes. So
I laughed because when you said when you said two friends, I thought you were talking about Marie and the serial killer. I was like, what? They're not friends.
Why would you think that?
They're like the two main characters.
What? Oh, come on, Tim. This is a shambles already. Tim, do you enjoy High Tension?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, it was kind of like, it felt like a big deal when it came out. I feel like it had like a lot of buzz around it. And again, this was, 2003, right?
2003,
yeah. So like it wasn't like, the internet wasn't as big. You weren't on there as much, or at least I wasn't as much. But I remember hearing like rumblings like, oh man, this is like really like messed up French horror movie you gotta watch. And I do remember liking it a lot when I first saw it. Rewatching it, I'm not as big on it. It's not bad. And obviously we'll get more to it in spoilers, but I guess I would just say after you watch it the first time, it's hard to watch it the same way the second time.
Yes, well, actually, fun enough, I think this is the first time I've seen it since the first time I saw it, if that makes sense. So the second time they call that. That's the correct phrase for that. But the point I'm making is that this is the first time I've rewatched it, and I think I saw it for the first time probably, maybe a couple of years after it came out.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's been good.
Stuff didn't come out as like quickly back then. Like,
yeah. So it's been a good 13, 14 years, something like that, since I saw it. But obviously there is a big reveal at the end of the movie. Which obviously we're not going to talk about at all until spoilers. But what I will say is, watching it this time, it is a completely different experience when you know exactly where it's going at the end, because you're looking at things differently, you're reconsidering things, and and it's funny actually, because I think after I watched it the first time, I actually I enjoyed it, but I questioned if the ending made sense. Right?
Yeah.
And the funny thing is watching it this time and having the knowledge of where it goes, I actually think it worked better for the ending than I thought it was going to from memory. I still have some things that I would question and critique, but
it feels like they did put some thought in it, but it doesn't feel like they made like an airtight
yeah, it's not airtight, but there's definitely things hinting to the ending. There's definitely lots of little moments where you can go, oh, okay, I didn't maybe read that the right way the first time, because you're just caught up in the carnage of the violence and the tension and the suspense. Because I think if I'm going to compliment it, is I do think it is pretty well shot and there is a good level of suspense. Yeah. The movie has a personality. The music's very sad and sort of melancholic throughout. It's got a feeling to it, which is something that Alexandre Aja, who made this, when he went on to do like the Hell Survives remake and stuff, that was like devoid of anything like that. Like that was just like generic crap, basically. So yeah.
The gore is like pretty good too.
Oh
they're decent kills. There are times watching it that I felt like I don't know, this feels like that kind of thing where it's like almost trying to be like shocking for the sake of being shocking or something. like there's this one moment in the beginning that I think is kind of like funny, and I'm like, come on. But
I think I know the scene you're talking about. The scene you're talking about, I also don't like very much. I think the rest of it though is honestly actually played quite well. And I think even if it was trying to be shocking at the time, the odd thing is that now I don't see most of it as being remotely shocking. It's just kind of, this is horror. This is, I see this all the time. It's fine.
Yeah.
No, I would say I still quite like it. I'd say it's held up better than I thought it was going to, actually. I think I went into it assuming that I was going to like it much less. And I actually came out of it feeling like, you know what? It's funny because I feel like I maybe like it in a different way than I did the first time. But I think I came into it thinking, oh, this was this hip film, 15 or so years ago, and I think it's maybe going to feel cheap or whatever on a rewatch now. Instead, I came out of it kind of respecting it for what it was, regardless. It's like, oh, they had this fun little idea for the horror movie, and they did it. It's pretty well shot. The kills are good. It's got a nice brisk pace to it. It's 90 minutes. It doesn't drag really at any point. So I'm pretty positive on it, I'd say.
Yeah, I don't want to be too negative on it, but I feel like I'm just like a little bit like in the middle. Like it's it's definitely not bad, but yeah, it's not something that I'm like, oh my god, like I need to rewatch it. It's gonna be on my top 100 horror list or anything. It's like watching, I'm like, oh, this is fine, but yeah, it wasn't overly crazy.
Okay.
Honestly, again, big thing we'll get to in spoilers, but I think maybe without that kind of that thing in it, maybe I would have liked it more if it's just a more straightforward, oh, here, take this movie as it is kind of thing, instead of like making you think. Who wants to think when you watch a movie, huh?
People with brains, Tim.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
I know it's a radical idea, yeah, and I know that you can't relate, but it is a thing that exists. But hey, so yeah, we'll make the spoiler-free section probably quite quick here. We'll give it our general thoughts. It's directed well. Cast are fine. Not that they have a lot to do beyond acting scared or menacing. Not much in between. But no, like I say, I think it's brisk. I think it moves quick enough. And a funny thing is I think the ending bugged me a lot more than the first time. Knowing it was coming, it didn't annoy me as much because I didn't feel like, oh yeah, you pulled the rug from me, you try to trick me and whatnot. It kind of felt like, okay, I know it's coming. It honestly worked better on a rewatch than it did the first time. The reveal.
I don't know. I don't know why, but for some reason I'm just imagining you like when a movie pleases you, you just blow it a little kiss when it's done.
What? See, this is the random and silly Tim I was setting you up for at the start of the show, and you disappointed me. And now you're throwing at me when I'm not prepared and have not. What?
That's the thing. You can't ask for it. If you ask for it, you're not gonna get it. But.
That sounded really rapey, Tim. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh come on! I didn't mean it like that.
If you ask for it, you're not gonna get it. You think that sucks all the fun out of it? What are you talking about? I physically don't think I have ever blown a kiss to anything in my life. I don't think I've ever made that motion with my hand.
Oh, well, that makes me very sad. Living such a sheltered life. Next time you go to the movies and you get your little, I don't know what snack you get at the movie. I don't know, some type of beef stick or whatever. I assume. Maybe just as a thank you, blow the cashier just a little kiss, say thank you, and then let them know what movie you're gonna go watch, and then see how that works out for you.
I don't know how to respond to that. I don't know where to go from here. I think Streams After Midnight is cancelled. Show's done. We're wrapping up here. There's nowhere to go.
I'm free. I think when we do our last episode, I'm just gonna like run out naked in the streets, just yelling like, "I'm free! I'm free! It's over."
And Tim, when we do our last episode, you'll be 65 and you won't be able to run anymore.
Oh no! Okay.
You'll be all grey.
Have our chairs. So. We're all gonna be like Professor X from the '90s X-Men cartoon, just like these giant yellow floating chairs.
What we're gonna do, Tim, is we're gonna get together and we're gonna go and do Streams After Midnight in a cemetery at like 2 in the morning.
Oh, okay.
And we'll talk about the movie. We'll wait for ghosts to maybe pop out. It'll be fun. It'll be a whole thing.
Yeah. All right, I'm down.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Anyway. What was I even talking about before you went down this blowing a kiss nonsense path?
You're talking about the score.
Yes. Was I? I don't think I was.
Maybe.
Score's alright. There's a couple of main tracks that kind of play a lot. There's also a Muse song that I haven't heard in a long time that plays a couple of times.
About that. I feel like this isn't true, but I feel like that was in like every movie trailer that year. Like it seems like so like resonant.
Okay, I see what you mean. I like how you started that saying, "Okay, this isn't true, but." Okay, so what? So we'll get spoilers. There's full spoilers for High Tension. So So the twist, yeah, this is all about the twist,
Yeah.
because I feel that's what most of the conversation is going to kind of revolve around now. So, of course, the reveal here at the end is that there is no actual killer, is that Marie herself is the killer the entire time, and she has a split personality, and she's the one killing everyone. And honestly, when I first saw this back then, I really enjoyed the movie. I really enjoyed the suspense of like her, because a lot of it when the killer shows up is her like running around the house and like hiding under the bed, then hiding in the closet, and she sees the mum get her throat slit. She sees the dad from upstairs get like his head put in between the stair like barricade, and then the cabinet just like decapitating him. Like she sees all this stuff and she's hiding. She's trying to like hide and be quiet, and the killer's like sort of walking around the house and like searching the rooms, and like all that stuff's great. It gets to the end and you get this reveal that she's the one who's been doing this the whole time. And I remember feeling like, what was the point of that twist? I felt like you were just doing it to have a twist rather than the movie actually really built up to that. However, watching it this time, knowing that the entire time, there is actually a lot of things throughout that do actually help it. That maybe you don't notice on the first time. Because I was paying close attention to how the family members who see her before they die, or of course Alex who's still alive, like how she reacts to her when she sees her. When she's tied up and Marie comes into the room, she looks at her like she's really terrified at her. Yeah. She's like terrified from her. The mother's like got a dying word. She sort of grabs and says, "Why?" Yeah. As if she's like, "Why did you do this?" There's lots of those little things, and I'm like, okay, this kind of works. I think it's very interesting to read into the motivation where she clearly has feelings for Alex. She's interested in her. She seems to disapprove of the fact that Alex is sexually active with men. And the killer actually arrives at the house and starts killing people while she's mid-orgasm. She's masturbating in the bedroom, and it's almost like this is like an awakening. Like she's scared of sex, or she's scared of this stuff because it brings out the worst in her, or something. Like deep down. So it's really interesting that the killer arrives while she's mid-orgasm. That is a really important like sort of little detail. I thought, oh, that's quite interesting, knowing where it ends. If you're reading into the psyche of like why she's doing what she's doing and what motivates her, what triggers the violent reactions and whatnot.
Hopefully that doesn't happen to most people.
I mean, if I got violent and killed someone every time I masturbated, Tim, I would have racked up a furious kill count by this point.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying. It's that thing actually. I remember someone who was one of these like anti-abortion like messages was like, every time you masturbate, you're killing like hundreds of thousands of children, and I'm like, so I've basically committed genocide. Then is what you're saying at this point.
Yeah, isn't that's the I think the end of shoot, what's that Monty Python movie?
Holy Grail.
The meaning of life.
Meaning of life.
Yeah, I think is it at the end, or at some point they have a song in there called "Every Sperm Is Sacred," which is a very good song.
I've never seen any other movies, so.
Insane. What? Oh yeah, I was looking something up on my phone. Have you ever seen Adaptation?
I have not. That's the Nicolas Cage movie.
Yeah, I really really like that movie, but it's so Nicolas Cage is actually playing Charlie Kaufman, real life screenwriter, but in the movie he has like a fake twin brother named Donald, and like he's just kind of like this like mess up, more of like a goofy party guy, but everyone loves him. But like he like decides he wants to be a screenwriter too, and like he's telling Charlie Kaufman his idea for a movie, and it's called The Three, and it's about like a woman being chased by a killer and the cop that's trying to like save her, and then like he's going through like this premise, and he's talking about like, and in the end they all turn out to be the same person, and then Charlie Kaufman just goes on this big rant about how it's like the most hack, stupid, dumb, generic thing that you can do. But I couldn't help but think about this that through this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen other things pull like similar twists, and sometimes it works really well because it ties into thematically what the movie's doing or what the TV show's doing. I
feel like this, I don't want to say that like, oh, this movie pulls it off exquisitely, but I do think like, they definitely could have been a lot worse with it. Like that there is some interesting stuff to it, but yeah, I don't know if I'm like completely in love with. That's what it is.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the twist is fine now. I wouldn't say I'm in love with it, but I think it works well enough. I think there's still elements that kind of like don't make sense to me, like because so I'm like, okay, so if it's really just her, then we should never really see him when he's not like around her or killing. But there's a scene early on where it just cuts to him in his truck and he's masturbating with like a decapitated head of a girl, and then later on, like when Alex is taken, she's in the back of the truck, and one of the things I was paying attention to here is that the truck is driving. We go to other locations, so there's no, like, she has to be physically out in the front of the truck being the one who's driving, but we see her in the back and she's like trying to tell Alex she's okay. But I was paying close attention to this, and Alex like never kind of like acknowledges she's there. She's actually just always kind of looking around. She never actually looks at her directly, kind of implying, that she's not really in the back with her. So that kind of works. However, this truck does exist, and there is scratches on the roof of the truck from other girls who've been kidnapped and stuff. And I'm like, okay, so where did this truck come from? Has she actually been taking other girls and killing them? Where was this truck hiding? Because she arrived at the house in the car with her friend, with Alex.
That's what kind of gets me, because it seems like they're very close friends. That she's probably been close together with her for a while. That it's like, when did she have time to do this?
They've been together long enough that she references all the sexual partners she's had recently. She's like, oh, you're back with him and you're doing this. It sounds like she's been around long enough that she has like knowledge of like just recent history with her.
Yeah, and you wouldn't be going to like spend the weekend at your friend's parents' house if you weren't pretty close. I would think.
Yeah, so I'm not sure like if the truck really exists or if it's really just the car they're in, or like.
That could be true too. Yeah.
Which parts are fabricated, which ones aren't. I mean, it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
And then the other thing because obviously the movie's in the house. It's a lot of her sneaking around. Obviously we find out later it's not really a killer. It's just her, but it plays well enough. Certainly on a first time watch when you're like he's stalking around the house and she's hiding in the closet. She's watching things, and then obviously like. The killer does run out and like shoot the kid, because they've got like a young boy as well.
That I thought I love the way that scene's was shot. Just the way she kind of looks out the window and you see the boy like running into the field, and then you just kind of see the killer slowly walking in towards him. That's a pretty good effective scene. Yeah,
especially when you know it's really just her, and it's like, okay, it makes sense. She saw it and then she's acting on it. Yeah. And they get to like a gas station at one point, and she comes in first, like talks to the cashier, and then the killer comes in after, and she's like, I'll phone the police, there's this guy. And I'm like, okay, how does this scene play when it's just her? It's not like both of them. And then, because actually the twist is revealed later on, because we see the security footage of like her being the one that kills him, and that he was never actually standing behind them. So it's like, how much of this is in her head? He does look notably scared throughout the entire thing, like once the killer version of her is in play, I guess. But I'm wondering, like, is he terrified because she's actually intimidating? Is he terrified because she's acting, she's like going back and forth between personalities? Because from his perspective, did she come in and say, hey, you need to call the police, and then she like walked back up and then started acting all weird and intimidating? Like, is that the weird part of it? But even again, that scene, she's asking him like, hey, like, do you bring girls in here? Do all the rich girls in the cars who drive through, did they ever offer you service? Like, it's always about sex. She's definitely, it's all about sex and her suppression of her own sexual being, I guess. Which I guess that's what the movie's really about. It's about not suppressing it because it can create a monster. And in this case, literally create a monster that does awful things.
Yeah.
And
that's
reality,
what they taught us in health class in high school.
No, because the opposite. Because they wanted you to suppress it, Timmy. Because they're like, no, you can't have sex. Sex is bad. Repress it all. Masturbation's bad. You're going to Satan. You're going to hell.
Well, I think they should start showing this movie in high school health class to say like, no, like this, because back in the day that might have been the attitude, but I think the attitude now is like, no, don't suppress it, otherwise you will kill people. I think that is pretty much a given at this point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, in a realistic sense, it makes you unhealthy, your mental state might deteriorate, so on and so forth. This is, of course, is taken, like a movie or a TV show would, it takes it to the extreme and makes it entirely literal, so... but But no, I mean, it works well enough for what it does. And I do think, like, at the end when she's like kind of, you know, quote unquote killed the killer, and she's, you know, she's got the buzzsaw, or actually no, he gets the buzzsaw out the car, but you know, she wraps the barbed wire around the you know, the pole from the fence, and she starts like whacking him in the head and all the rest of it. Great gore, looks good. As the entirety of the police department are out for him. But Jesus Christ, there's a lot going on. So we get the twist, and then we get like Alex finally getting sort of ungagged and like sort of reacting to her. And she's like, oh, "Stay away from me! You murdered my whole family! You did all this," and it becomes this chase sequence. And she's like, "I'm on your side! I'm on your side!" And then when she's like stabs her back and like runs off, that's when she sort of turns back into the killer, and we actually see her like take out the big buzzsaw. And you know, we get the death of the guy in the car who tries to help her, and the whole thing. And throughout all this, there's this really sad music playing throughout the whole thing. I like the melancholy of it. There's this kind of like sad desperation to it all. It doesn't necessarily play it all for this is monster, brutal, murderer, killer. It plays it as kind of sad as this person's this screwed up. You know, it's a tragedy in and of itself. You know, on top of the obvious, you know, killing of innocent people, which is obviously a tragedy. But hey, that's I think it works well enough. I think you can critique some of it, and I think it isn't like you said, it isn't airtight. Like some of it makes you go, how does this scene work exactly when it's just her and not both of them, or how does this scene work when it's just, you know?
I do think though, like you are right though. Like I was, like a little bit surprised at like rewatching it. Like, oh, it does mostly work. Like, other than a few stuff here and there. Like I think I was kind of expecting it to be maybe a little bit more of a mess, but I was like, oh no, like for the most part.
Because I think the stuff that does make it work is other characters' reaction to her, because they know she's been doing this, and when you're watching it knowing that she was the one killing them and hurting them, their reactions of horror, and it plays, because I think the first time through it plays fine anyway, because they're just terrified and scared, and they're confused and angry and upset, and it doesn't make much sense. But on a repeat viewing, when you know the ending is that she's actually the killer, it does actually mostly line up with how all the other characters interact with her. Where it maybe like suffers a little bit is like when you're like, okay, but where did this truck come from, and how you know, because there's a whole point where she's like chasing the truck down in another car, and I guess you could just say, oh, she's just driving the one thing that she's in, you know, where Alex is in the back, no matter what it is, but she thinks in her head she's chasing after it because she's, you know, she's got a hero complex. It's, you know, on top of the usual sexual frustration stuff, and you know, letting her aggression out, she's also got this fantasy of being the one who saves her. You know, I'm the one who comes, you're the damsel and I'm going to come and save you. She has this fantasy almost, what she's basically enacting by and it is a question: has she done this before? Has there actually been other victims, or is this just? And that's the big problem with the scene with the, you know, when he's on his own with the decapitated head. Yeah. Outside of just trying to be shocking because he's, you know, he's giving himself a blowjob with a decapitated head, is that it's like, well, how does this fit in exactly with the, like, because she's still with her friend, she's in the car, she's away. Yeah. Because they imply at the start she has this dream where she's been chased through the forest by herself, which is actually a really big hint when you know what the ending is. You're like, oh yeah, okay, all right. That sets things up. I almost like was shocked at that at the opening, because I was like, that feels like it's far too on the nose. Like it's actually just blatantly telling you what the ending's going to be. But I guess most people, including me, don't pick up on it the first time. You don't necessarily take it as, oh, it's going to be the big twist. That's just her the whole time, you know, chasing after herself. But hey, so, but yeah, so yeah, the decapitated head scene. What's your thoughts?
I don't think you should do that to someone.
That goes without saying. Yes, it should go without saying. I mean, maybe some people do need that reminder, but yeah. No,
it's. I mean, that's what I was referring to earlier. That it's the. I mean, when I first saw it, I probably was like, whoa, but yeah, watching it now, it just feels like a little like gratuitous. Like, okay, you're just trying to be like, oh, like big shocking, like, oh, not only is he killing these people, but he's like just sucking himself off with them.
Honestly, it's the only one that feels gratuitous though. Like the rest of the gore in the movie just feels like it fits with the scenes it's in, but that one scene just feels out of place. and it feels like, hey, look at how shocking this is, look how badass this killer is. But on top of that, once you know the twist, it doesn't sync up with like what. So why are we cutting away to him on his own doing this away from everything? Like it's just kind of weird.
Yeah, exactly. Which kind of makes it like
it's like it's intentionally there just to throw you off. It's like it's intentionally there to make the twist more effective, but in a cheap way because it doesn't actually work.
Yeah, like if he came up with like some type of like, you know, airtight alibi of like, oh, this is actually what's going on in the scene. You can rewatching it, you can see what's happening here. Like, I think that would be pretty impressive. But yeah, without it, it kind of just feels like like a cheat. Like we're gonna show you something shocking to set up like how dangerous and crazy this guy is, and also, there's no way that could really be happening given with what we know about the character and where they are and everything. It's very strange.
Yeah. Also, I guess another minor critique is that there's a sort of cheap little scare scene where they're on the way to the house where our friend, Alex, stops the car and is like, oh, I think I saw someone out in the field. And like she makes her walk out into the field and then gives her a little fright when she tries to drive the car away. I guess you could say it's kind of teasing her own feeling of abandonment, like she's going to be abandoned by her friend because she loves her, she's in love with her, she doesn't want her to ever leave. So maybe that teasing is a thing. But yeah, so and actually, I do like though before she masturbates, she does actually look. She's outside smoking, and she looks up and she sees like Alex showering, and it's like this very kind of intimidating, almost menacing, kind of perverted kind of watching that she does before she comes in and goes upstairs. And I like that as a foreshadowing again of the themes and of like why she's really obsessed and what's causing her, at least in her head what's justifying all this crap.
Like you were taking notes. You're like, oh, okay. If I stand here and look up there, then I can see.
Honestly, I have never ever been to a house that has like a shower that's visible from a window.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't make sense.
It is a full-on movie thing. I mean, maybe older houses didn't think about it, so maybe they do have windows. And because my bathroom doesn't even have a window in it. It's like in the middle of the house.
Ooh.
So there's not even a window to open. And most bathrooms with windows tend to have frosted glass for this very reason. Or whatever. Like, I don't know, it's just weird. Like, it never happens in real life.
Yeah.
And I've tried. I've looked.
Oh, God.
Come on, it was the obvious. Like, if I didn't make that joke, you were going to make it. So I just thought I'll get in front of her and make the joke. It's fine. Yeah, it's one of those things. Like, I feel like you never actually get like windows into. Like, I feel like anytime there's a movie where someone looks through a window and sees someone undressed, even if it's not a bathroom, I'm like, no one ever does this. No one ever actually undresses in front of an open window.
Yeah.
not unless they intentionally are kinky and get off on the idea of it or something like. But it never happens by accident. No one ever actually just does it in front of a window. Like, it's weird.
No, certainly not.
Well, it's one of those movie tropes that just are bullshit. But hey ho. Oh, I thought you had something to add, Tim. You're being very awkwardly quiet through this and just giggling to yourself. I feel like you've got a lot to admit that you don't want to fess up to.
I shouldn't. I don't want to implicate myself in anything.
We got a regular peeping Tom over here. He's got his binoculars out.
Oh, come on. You could have said peeping Tim. That's
low-hanging fruit, Timmy. Low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. We already mentioned it, but like I do think the kill scenes were pretty good, especially the first one with the dad. I thought was particularly like brutal.
That's good. I liked the mum getting her throat slit was pretty good looking. The cashier getting axed was okay. It was fine. But I think what I like about it is that I feel like some movies do really good suspense and other movies do really good gore. This is actually one of these unique mixtures where they do both quite well. There's a lot of nice like suspense where she's hiding and like he's looking for her, both in the house, then at the gas station, in the bathrooms and stuff. Like,
so, would you say that it succeeded in giving you high tension?
I suppose it would. I suppose I would. Yes.
Okay.
There you go. It succeeded on its promise. Yes.
I do like Switchblade Romance, so I think that is a pretty cool name.
That's pretty cool. I mean, High Tension is a direct translation of the French, so I don't know why they felt they need to change it for certain places, but you know, whatever. Whatever. It's a cool title. Switchblade Romance does sound quite cool. But hey, and also probably my favorite part of Gore though might actually be when he's getting bashed in the head with the barbed wire bat.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because she pulls it out of his skin and you just see all these little cuts and from all the various bits of barbed wire. It just looks really quite good.
Yeah, I think that's one thing. Like how do you pronounce it? It's Aja.
Alexandre Aja.
Yeah, I think that is one thing that he is good at. Like, whether or not like you like his movies, I do think he's good at like being pretty brutal. Like, the gore never really feels like it's like held back or anything, or like you really see like it always feels like I feel like his stuff is very visceral. You get like like a lot of like close-ups of some crazy stuff.
So I mean, I guess we'll get to rating and Timmy. Obviously the movie ends. She's in a mental asylum, and Alex is looking through the mirror, and she just kind of like holds up her arms like, oh, Alex, and then it cuts. It works. It's fine. It works. The ending. I remember being again. I genuinely think the final like 15-20 minutes worked better for me knowing what the ending was going to be than it did the first time. Yeah. Where I felt kind of like, does this work though? If this is the ending, like, I mean, she was hiding from him and everything, like, Yeah,
but, I almost feel like I don't really want to watch it again, but part of me feels like maybe I almost should, because it almost felt unfair that like while I'm watching it I'm not really like like part of my brain is, instead of like focusing on just watching the movie, it's focusing on being like the mechanics of it, like, okay, yeah, how does this work? Okay, so she's there, he's there, like
but
like
to be fair though, it does make it a really easy second watch, because there's like a whole new lens through which to watch it, because the second time you're analyzing it and going, how does this work with the idea that it's really just her? Like, how does this fit into the themes of the sexual frustration and repression? Like, how does this, like you're actually, you have a whole new sort of avenue to sort of go down, and because of that, it makes the second viewing really easy. I'm curious now if a third viewing would work, because like now that I've done both of those, does it not have the same charm? Like, try to figure it out the third time or whatever. But hey, so let's rate it. So Tim, what would you rate it out of 10?
I don't love it, but I can't really be too harsh. Like it is still like a decent watch. And yeah, it held up better than I expected. So I think I'll give it a 6, which I think it's decent. Not crazy about it, but I don't really have that much bad stuff to say about it either.
Yeah, 6 is a little bit in the low end, I think. For me. I think I'm actually going to give it an 8. I think. No, I generally think it works much better than I thought it was going to a second time. And from my memory, I think I liked it at the time, but over time, my memory kind of assumed that it didn't age well. So I had this weird like mixed opinion on it. And then watching it again, I'm like, no, what works about this still works really well. And then the stuff that I didn't like it as much in the first time, when I thought the ending was a bit cheap, actually works a little bit better. Again, it's not airtight, it's not perfect, but I thought it was a really solid 90-minute watch. Like, I can't, like, going into it, I was like, oh, I'm going to like this as much, it's going to be a bit of a slog, and I didn't feel any of those things. Like, I was actually kind of into it. Once it hit the 30-minute mark, once the killer was at the house, once it got to that point, it basically never let up, and I was kind of into it for the whole time. So
yeah, I mean, hopefully I'm not being like too harsh, but again, ultimately
you've been an awful person, you're an awful human being, Tim.
But I mean, ultimately though, I have to kind of go on like my enjoyment level of watching it, because even if like you can't really, like, if it's technically proficient and does certain things well, ultimately there is going to be that personalized factor of your, okay, well, even with all that stuff taken into account, when I watched it, how did I feel about it? And yeah, it's yeah, for me, it was just, it was less like, oh, okay, oh, wow, cool, oh, okay, and more like, oh, all right, yeah, okay. So,
I got it. That's fine. You don't have to over-explain it too much. I mean, I know the point of the show is. I know the point of the show is to explain how we feel about the movie, but you've done a reasonable choice, Tim. You don't have to, get defensive of your score. Just accept that it's wrong, and we can move on with our lives. It's fine.
No.
That is us, though. That has been Screams After Midnight. So apologies we did miss a week, but we should be back again next week. No plans to skip another week as of right now. So it's a pleasure. Of course, the vote for this month is up on Patreon as well. So make sure if you're a patron, go and check out the vote and go do that. That's all end of school year theme this time. We got prom night. We got graduation day, stuff like that. I can't remember them off the top of my head. I should have had them up so I could have told you. But that's the theme. It's all end of school year stuff. So go check out that and give it a vote, especially if you're a patron. If you're not a patron, go to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and consider being a patron to get some bonus stuff and feel fuzzy inside for supporting the show and the channel. So that is us. So like, subscribe, let us know what you think of the movie in the comments, all the usual stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates if you want to get channel updates and stuff like that. I said that already. That's weird. I basically repeated myself. This is Tim. Just to sort of circle us all back round to the very start of this episode. Tim was making funny faces at me as I was counting down before we started, and it was really putting me off. So if I had a weird look in my face at the start, that's why. It's all Tim's fault. It's always Tim's fault. And people might be expecting me to say goodbye here and then blow Tim a kiss, because that would be that would be the natural conclusion to me saying I've never blown anyone a kiss before. It ain't happening. It just ain't happening. That's us, guys. Keep watching scary movies. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.